Well, let me talk about something. I don't think they ever would have really got away with what they've done with the silver and gold, doing the paper short contracts and playing with the price, the banks and stuff. They don't do this stuff unless it's known about it. They know that they're doing it, and they're doing it with approval. That's why they're not going to jail. It's not why they're not being stopped. They're doing it with approval. And the thing about it is uh, they're getting away with it because they're doing a job for the Federal Reserve, and they're what they're doing is they're supporting the dollar. It's as simple as that. So they started with gold and silver, and they adjusted the price of gold and silver. When gold and silver were getting high, I think silver touched almost $50 an ounce, and gold was up something like 1,900. Just off the top of my head, I'm not look. I could look it up, but I'm not going to bother. It was something in that area, and they knocked the price down with the short paper shorting, the paper short contracts and gold and silver, and they were doing it to support the dollar. But what happened was it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. The dollar still started to get weak, and so then they started to use oil, and they're shorting it with oil. And so what's happened is now just that's been working good. That's been keeping the dollar riding high, oil. But then that wasn't enough in the end. That wasn't enough. And so then what they had to do was they actually had to start raising interest rates. And so that worked good at first. And the dollar was riding high again. But now, guess what? Raising interest rates is not enough. It's not enough. Guess what's happened? If you take a look at the US dollar index right now, the dollar index is 98.64. It's come down not long ago. It was 101.18 just on the 4th to 7th. Now, that's not long ago. It was over 101 on the 4th to 7th. Now, they raised interest rates. They raised interest rates, and the dollar has slid down to 98.55. That's where it ended at. 98.64. I should say, 98.64 right now, 98.64. So the dollar index is sliding, it's falling, and they've raised interest rates. So raising interest rates isn't enough, and the oil price is falling. Now, you know something's wrong when you see the oil price falling and the dollar falling simultaneously. That shouldn't happen, because it's an inverse relationship between the dollar and the oil. And that's because it's a petrodollar. This is a bad sign. This is a really bad sign for the dollar, the fact that oil prices are dropping and the dollar is actually dropping too simultaneously. So, what's the Fed going to do? Now, you remember the first thing they did was silver and gold prices to support the dollar. Then they attacked oil to support the dollar. Then they raised interest rates to support the dollar. None of it's working anymore. What are they going to do next? I'll tell you what they're going to do next. Next, they're going to sell their $4.5 trillion toxic asset book. That's what they're doing. And they're going to raise interest rates too. But there's a problem with all this. Eventually, what's going to happen is they're going to kill whatever little bit of an economic recovery that they had. And they're going to create a deflationary spiral. They're going to create a deflationary event. Probably a deflationary shock event, because what's probably going to happen is the stock market's probably going to take a tear downwards. It's just going to take a nosedive at some point. Probably they might get away with the next interest rate hike. It might be the one after that causes it. Or it might happen on the very next interest rate hike. At any rate, they're playing with fire at this point. And so what in the end is going to support the dollar? Nothing in the end. In the end, the dollar index is going to fall. Now, I've explained it. The dollar index is going to fall down until it hits 70. That's your marker. When it goes under 70, that's when all heck's going to break loose. And that's when things are going to start to really get bad for everything. So I wanted to point out tonight in this article, what I'm pointing out is the fact that the U.S. dollar index is falling at the same time oil is falling. Now, everything is priced in oil. How much oil can your dollar buy? Right now, it's about, now a few weeks ago, you could buy a barrel of oil, a little while ago, you could buy a barrel of oil. It cost you more. Now it costs you less. So your dollar's buying more right now. The dollar buying more, the U.S. dollar index should be up. But it's not, it's down. That's a bad sign, very bad sign. Take my word for it, that's a bad sign. That is a bad sign for the strength of the dollar. The fact that the dollar is falling even though they're raising interest rates and even though they're doing everything they can to support the dollar, it's still falling. But at the same time, we've got falling oil prices, falling silver and gold prices, and I think soon to be, the stock market's going to start to ease back. I don't think it's going to fall just yet. I think the stock market's got enough to hold in it to wait for the next rate hike, and maybe even steam on past that next rate hike a little bit. And the reason why is people are nervous right now. They just don't have any place they want to put their money. They don't trust anything. They trust the stock market more than anything. And the stock market has been on a bull tear, and this is why they really trust it right now. That's where they want to keep their money. But the U.S. Treasury bonds are only as good as the United States government's ability to pay you back that money that they owe you on Treasury bond. And so they because they conceive that it's as good as the United States government, they think it's one of the safest assets on earth. They think it's one of the safest assets on earth, and the same with the stock market, because it's been going up for so long. They think that that's a very safe place to put their money. And of course, you have to understand something else too about all this. Money managers don't put their money into physical gold and silver. And they handle vast amounts of money. They'll handle many, what they'll do is bundle people's accounts up. You got your different accounts, and they'll bundle your accounts up, and one money manager will handle a lot of different people's money. And they're not going to put their money into silver or gold. What are they supposed to do? They're going to go and buy $1 billion worth of gold and physical gold? What are they going to do with it? Put it in a big dump truck? I mean, that's a whole dump truck full. Where are they going to take it? Where it's not going to get stolen or whatever. And not only that, can you imagine how much trouble a money manager would be in if the gold suddenly took a drop like it did in the last little while? I mean, how much money he'd lose? They don't want to lose money. They're not in the business of losing money. And so they don't buy physical gold and silver, the money managers. What they buy is they buy U.S. Treasury bonds. That's what they buy. And that way they know they're guaranteed a return on they're not going to go down. They buy stuff like that. They buy solid stuff that they can. But here's the thing. The United States is $100 trillion in debt when you count their unfunded liabilities. Okay, and you just count their debt alone, they're up to $20 trillion. If you just count the straight debt, they're up to $20 trillion, and no hope of ever paying it back. And the Treasury bonds is only a counterbalance to that debt. So it's a debt. It's what you're actually buying is debt. You're buying debt when you buy a U.S. Treasury bond. It's not even money. It's actually a debt. It's nothing positive. It's not something positive. Now, see, if you were to buy yourself a little ounce bar of gold, 1 ounce bar of gold, you're buying something that's positive. That's positive. But a U.S. Treasury bond is a debt. You're buying some debt. Anyway, talked enough. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next article. Bye.